Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our final edition of the week of Sonny Kathy's 5-Minute Sermon. Can't believe it's already Friday, but I guess I should believe it because every week Janine and I talk about how quick Friday gets here. But anyway, hope you have a wonderful weekend planned, and I'm not going to be terribly busy this weekend working, so we're going to enjoy some church and also probably go drink some coffee in the morning or go to the library and sit and do some reading. But I'm planning kind of a semi-relaxing weekend. I will work some. I just can't stop myself. But I thank God for the work. I really thank God for the work. Always I thank him. And I'm so blessed to be able to work here at home and get to look over there at my girlfriend when she's up. She's not up. She gets up at 9 o'clock. She goes to bed late. She's a night owl. Goes to bed late, and then she gets up at 9, and doesn't have to get up at 9, but she does. Comes in here and kind of makes sure I'm taken care of, and I make her coffee for her, and she makes my breakfast, and we have a great time together all day long. We just never get tired of one another. At least I'm speaking for myself. I got to have her, I'll tell you. But anyway, 45 and a half years, and I'm so blessed. And I know you are with your prospective spouses, those of you that have lost spouses and all. I can't imagine the pain, but great to see Nancy and George Randall Sutherland and John Johnson's here. Our truck drivers are on the road. George Randall Sutherland and Big Bad John Johnson, truck drivers. Sheila Kelly's husband is a truck driver. Great to see Sheila and Nancy, and like I say, George Randall and John Johnson. And I know he goes by George, and I've always known that's his name, but I've always called him Randy. But anyway, you know him as George Sutherland. And anyway, Randy, I don't know who all calls you George, but it's kind of like Sonny and Don. Now I got a lot of people calling me Don because I changed my Facebook to Don Sonny Kathy. Don for my classmates that knew me as Don Kathy in school, and Sonny, of course, has been my name since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and so anyway, it's interesting. But John's been with Sherry for 29 years on the 25th. Wow, happy anniversary. John, hey, for you and Sherry. God bless you. Well, let's get started, folks. I don't want to tie you up. I know you're busy. We're going to talk today. Sister Haney says this is our 150th lesson. She wrote me and said she'll have to listen to the replay because she is in Oklahoma with our respective grandbabies that are 17-year-old twins. She took a picture and sent it to me. She's going to a baseball game. Grant is a great pitcher, greater catcher, and can play anywhere on the field. But our grandson is such a talented athlete. He took after my family, the Mahlers, the Germans. They are great athletes. My uncle, Slim Mahler, was recruited by the New York Yankees in, I guess, probably the 30s, and he did not do it. He had a farm, and he had 15 or 16 kids, and so he didn't go join the Yankees, but that was in the great era of baseball, and my great uncle was a sought after pitcher. But anyway, let's get started here. Sister Haney says this is lesson number 150, and we're going to be talking about friends according to Jesus, and we're looking at Luke 11 verse 5 through 8. And folks, I want you to hear this is going to be an interesting lesson. I'm going to try to hurry because I do have a couple of things I want to read to you at the end of this lesson. But anyway, to bring it into perspective, but in Luke 11, beginning at verse 1, they talk about, they said, teach us to pray, and that's where the Lord goes through the Lord's Prayer, our Father which art in heaven, and then give us this day our daily bread, etc., etc. But starting at verse 5, he says, and he said unto them, which of you, right after the Lord's Prayer, he said, here's what you ask a friend. Here's what you ask your friend God. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day, talking to a friend, and pray it every day. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, friend. Deliver us from evil, my friend. And he said, so now I got off track here. Deliver us from evil. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And then he said unto them, which of you shall have a friend? And go, Brother D. Hardo, he said, if you have 6 friends by the end of your life that can carry your casket, you've accomplished something in life. And boy, the longer I go in life, the more I believe that. I used to think I had hundreds of friends, thousands of friends, but really it narrows down to about 6 people that can carry your casket. Think about that today. Think about who could carry your casket today. That's your true friends. Janine and I always say it boils down to her and I. Even as much as we love our kids and as much as they love us, really when the rubber meets the road and things get tough, even the kids are too busy sometimes to deal with it. And so only her and I, only your spouse, friends, only that closest soulmate is the one that really will stick with you when things hit hard against you. But he said unto them, which of you shall have a friend and shall go unto him at midnight? Now, I don't call my friends after about 8 o'clock. And I don't like phone calls after 10 o'clock unless it's really an emergency. Really, 8 or 9 is pushing it. But I don't call anybody after 10 for sure. And he said this guy called his friend at midnight. And he said unto him, friend, because why? Because you feel like you can go to your friend. You can at least go to your friend, not an acquaintance, not a coworker, but your friend. Lend me 3 loaves. Now listen to why. Because a friend of mine, another friend, has come by and he's on a journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he from within shall answer and say, your friend answers back and says, don't give me problems, man. Don't trouble me. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give thee. This is his friend. And how many knows there's even limitations in friendship other than God? But there are limitations even in friendship. But listen to this. And he from within said, I've got my children already in bed. I can't rise and give you. I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him because he's his friend. Even the friend part of this did not make him want to get up out of that bed and serve his friend. But because of his importunity, he will rise and give him as many as he needs. Because you bugged him to pieces, he's finally going to get up and help you. But folks, today we're locking this into God. You might, and we're going to try to answer some questions today. You might say, why in the world would I have to beg God? Why in the world do I have to ask him time and time again to save my loved ones, to give me my daily bread? Why do I have to do that? If he loves me and he's my friend and he's God and he's able, why in the world would he want me to have to always beg and ask, if that's what you want to call it? Begging. Prayer is not begging, but maybe we look at it like that sometimes. Why would God make me do this? He knows what I need. Why in the world do I have to ask him for this all the time? Well, I think this question's in every one of us, our minds. And so I want to give you some answers today. So here we go. The context of this was the Lord's Prayer. Basically, the Lord's Prayer is asking our ultimate friend, God, to bless us with daily bread or whatever the case may be. Then he goes into this story of the man who goes to his friend at midnight. I just read it. And because a guest came, listen to this, because a guest came to his house and needs bread because it was unthinkable. Listen to this, folks. I'm going to give you some insight that God gave me this morning. Because it was unthinkable in their culture to not be a good host. It was unthinkable. Abraham, he killed the fatted, or he killed the oxen or whatever it was, the sheep, for those people that were the angels that were going into Sodom and Gomorrah. Abraham was known to be a great host. He just loved serving people. My brother Dave Cathy is just like that. He loves cooking a big spread and barbecuing and grilling and just making the best chili in the world, and he loves serving people. I'm not good at it. Especially now that we're in this one bedroom, we don't even have a place to. I used to start churches in my living room, 40, 50 people in my living room. When we'd start a church, then we'd move out into a building. So we had a lot of people at our house. But my brother is a natural host and a great cook. But listen to this. And so it says it was part of their culture and hopefully ours not to neglect hospitality. Now listen to this. In saying that, we as Christians, not as the church at large, but as individual Christians, we need to have our own cultures. You hear me? Not just because our church does it or the church worldwide does it, but we as Christians need to develop our own culture. Some of you will help people do bookwork. Some will help them work on their car. Some will help them do like my brother does, cook and say, I can't wait to have people over. James Harris is a lot like that. He will cook and make wonderful meals and serve people, and they all have their talents. And I'm looking at all the people that have joined us. Thank you for joining us. But anyway, so we need to develop our own cultures as Christians that we establish as individuals. We need to set up our own kindnesses. But even when we have dear friends, sometimes we need to be persistent to receive their help. The lesson in the Scripture is to teach us to be persistent in prayer. Now, why? I asked you that question in the beginning. Why in the world would we have to constantly ask God for the same thing over again? And I say that in saying, for instance, George Mueller, the great orphanage owner, or whatever you want to call it, had thousands of orphans over the years, built wonderful buildings in England, famous for his faith. He would never ask anyone for his needs to be met. Never. He would not tell you what his needs were because he wanted to totally rely on God. They would be out of food, and George Mueller would fall on his knees and pray, and he would seek God, and if people wanted to know what's going on here, he would not tell them. And next thing you know, there's a knock on the door, and people are bringing groceries in just in time for that meal. He prayed on his knee. He read the Bible 100 times through in his lifetime, 50 of them on his knees. Now, I've read the Bible through probably 50 times in my life, but not on my knees all the time. I told you Bishop David Fuller will get on his knees every morning and read at least one chapter of the Bible before he rises to go take care of his brushing his teeth and everything else. Then he comes back and he reads his Bible and prays, but he gets on his knees every morning to read his Bible at 80 years old. Still, I'm sure he's still doing it. I've traveled the world with him, and in the hotel rooms that we would share, we would wake up about the same time. We both loved the Word. We both loved prayer, so we traveled well together. But he would get on his knees. I would get up, and he would be on his knees, flipping through his Bible, reading that first chapter. He's the one that inspired me to journal. He's the one that inspired me to consistently read my Bible. And now I do it twice a year, probably 50 times, and I'm so thankful for that inspiration that I had from him. But George Mueller prayed for 5 friends that were lost. He prayed for them until they all got saved. The last one got saved 50 years after he started praying. 50 years. You talking about importunity. You talking about consistency. But all 5 of them, that ought to excite you today. All 5 of them got saved because they had a friend that was praying for them. I put it in my calendar this morning. I read this book that I'm going to read you just a little bit of a story out of. I pray you can stick with me, folks, because you're going to love this lesson. And I'm hurrying, but I put in my calendar to remind me every day at 6 o'clock to go to our bedroom and pray and put on praise and worship music. I pray I pray, do my devotion, read my Bible 2.5 to 3 hours every morning. But I want to add an evening to this. I want to put on praise music. I want to go in there and pray for my grandchildren every day, my children every day, and whoever else of you that the Lord lays on my heart, especially for those that need salvation. 5 friends got prayed for 50 years, and the 5th one came in on the 50th year of George Mueller's prayer. Listen to this. The idea of being persistent. Now, here's where we get into the lesson, the keys, and I'm hurrying, folks, because I want you to hear this. There are 5 keys to persistent prayer. Number 1, the idea of being importune or persistent in prayer is meant to teach us several principles. And here's what we're going to talk about today. But why? Why would we want to be importune? The lesson from this parable is to encourage believers to be persistent in their prayers to God. The number 1 key is it builds faith and dependence. Persistent. Why does God want us to beg for everything? Why does God, if you want to call it that, why does God want us to ask him every day for my grandchild, Kylo, to be saved? Every day, 7 days a week. Father, I'm going to go to that room back there at 6 o'clock if we're home. If not, it'll be another part of the afternoon. But that calendar reminds me, not that I necessarily need that, but I want it there and glaring in my face. Go to the room and pray. I'm just going to use Kylo for an example. It could be Grant, Sarah. It's going to be all of them, Elijah. But I'm going to go to that room every day. Save my grandchildren. Save them. Draw them with your Holy Spirit. Save my children. Starla, Joe, Sabrina, Gary, Derek and Savannah. Save them. We haven't made the city yet, folks. You can't say, well, Starla and Joe are great. They're ministers. They sing. They love God. Sabrina, Gary, they all these different phases of my children love God. But yet we're not home yet, folks. I got to pray that, not out of fear, but out of importunity. I got to pray every day, Lord, let my children